Hello there, boys and girls, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Front Office Playbook. I am Colin Henderson. Joining me today are my esteemed cohorts, Eli Danson and Adam Datema. How you doing, boys?
Doing great.
Hey.
It was an amazing game last night.
That was a good game. For those, in case you're not listening to this in real time, we are talking about the national championship game at the end of March Madness, and that was a great game. Kind of a bummer, no last shot to at least give me that final little kick, but I did have a couple bucks on Florida, so I did not mind the fact that a shot didn't go up. Sorry, Damon, I thought you were about to say something, or you just left us there.
No,
Just left us hanging in the
This is
spot. All right.
anticlimactic.
Yeah. The best
Just like my
color man
comment.
in the business for nothing, folks. We here at the Front Office Playbook. If this is your first time with us, please welcome. Join us. The water's warm. We here at the Front Office Playbook are here to talk through every major move around the NFL with a highlight on the most important position in all of sports, the general manager. Some can play, some can coach, but few can put together a championship roster. So be sure to hang out with us on all of our social channels as we follow the NFL GM schedule from offseason to draft and from OTAs to kickoff. Coming up on the show today, we're turning our attention to the upcoming NFL draft, more specifically, what could be a very good running back class. We're going to discuss some of the biggest names in the class and some of the names you should know, highlight what teams are in the market for a new ball carrier, and we'll play GM Matchmaker to see where some of the best team player pairings exist and how each team should game plan around the position. So Adam, why don't you kick us off on this running back 2025 or running back draft class conversation by both previewing this draft class and tell us how it compares to some of the more recent classes at the position.
Yeah, so we've heard a lot about it being a good class this year, but it really is a lot better than last year. And once you go past last year, it kind of depends on what your definition of a good running back class is. So just looking at last year, briefly, the top running backs in terms of production, Trey Benson had a decent year. Bucky Irving was probably the best, and I believe he was taken in the fourth round. Isaac Guerrero showed a little bit for the Niners. Ray Davis showed some flashes for the Bills. But, Jonathan Brooks, I think, was like the biggest guy in terms of what people were expecting and waiting to see. And, it just didn't work out for him. And, it sucks with the injuries, and we hope it does. But overall, it wasn't a great running back class last year. And, if you want to look at the year before, that's when Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs went in the first round. And, a bunch of people were surprised about Jahmyr Gibbs. But, if you are taking a running back in the first round, they have to change your offense. And I think everyone who follows football will agree that Jahmyr Gibbs has changed that offense. David Montgomery is an incredible back, but, the element that Jahmyr Gibbs brings, just, being able to switch those two out, it's incredible. First round running back can mean a lot of different things, but it has to mean an offense changing back. That said, after those guys, it was a pretty good class. Zach Charbonnet has shown some good things. Tajay Spears has shown some good things. Tank Bigsby even had, a random few weeks here and there that he's done some real good things. And Roschon Johnson has as well.
You love Tanks Bigsby. This is a little inside front office playbook here.
Travis
The amount of time I have had to listen to Adam Datema sit and bend my ear over Tank Bigsby, a man who we spent 100 out of 100 fab dollars on in fantasy last year on free agency. Yeah, forgive me, but enough Tank Bigsby talk. Talk about the other players.
Let's just put a little context there. I spent the 100 because I had Travis Etienne as my starter. He got injured, and
we're not hashing fantasy stuff now. You spent
$100
on Tank Bigsby. Leave it.
Yeah,
there.
I only had one other. There's some context that you're skipping over there. But Tank Bigsby, he has shown some things. He's not going to be a consistent guy for you, but he's done all right. Really, two guys that kind of no one was expecting from this class were Chase Brown and Devon Achane. Like Devon Achane, people were looking at him, but almost more of as a gadget guy. And so the fact that he's turned into a consistent running back is a bit of a surprise, but he's been incredible at it. And Chase Brown this past year has done some good things too. So 2 years ago, I would say is a little more similar to this class because it has the depth, but I don't think this class has the top end that Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs provided. And I know that at this point, there are two running backs projected to go in the first round, at least in Ashton Jeanty and Omarion Hampton. And they're good running backs, but they're not Gibbs, and Bijan Robinson. I'm not in that order necessarily, but this class is deep. It has guys like Janty who could change a NFL team. It has guys like Omarion Hampton, who a lot of people believe could change an NFL team. And it has guys like the Ohio State running backs who are just amazing athletes who I believe both were starting since their freshman year. And then Judkins came over to Ohio State this year and then they split time. But I think both were starting or at least getting significant playing time from their freshman year. So two long-term guys who have done nothing but produce in college football. You know, before we even get into the scouting reports, those are guys that you need to look at as depth for this class. And then guys who didn't go to the schools like Ohio State, but RJ Harvey and Devin Neal and Caleb Johnson and, you know, a fan favorite in Cam Scatabo. Like there's a lot of guys in this class who can produce for you from the running back position. But it's going to be fun during this episode finding out if it's going to translate to the NFL for certain teams, for certain guys on certain teams, and how those teams should go about acquiring.
Eli, any other names that we should know about as we want a table set in this draft class? Any other names that you particularly want to highlight?
Yeah, there are a couple guys who have some really unique traits about them in this class that build out the depth of the group. Caleb Johnson out of Iowa is a favorite of a lot of people. Late round guy who's got some real shiftiness to him. RJ Harvey out of University of Central Florida. And then there's a speedster out of Texas, Jaden Blue, who's got some juice. Maybe not quite as much as Trevion Henderson does, but when he's got a crease, he can hit it and go. So there's just really useful backs. Woody Marks out of USC. He's old, but a useful, solid player. Ollie Gordon had an amazing 2023 campaign. This most recent year was not as good. So there's some questions around him. And a guy like Trevor Etienne, who transferred to Georgia this year, did absolutely nothing. But he's got some traits and some tools to work with where you could see him be successful in the NFL. You're listing out 10, 11 running backs you could see as being either bell cow backs or good rotational pieces to add to a backfield. There's a lot of interesting and unique options in this class to fill out what teams that we'll talk about what teams need for their specific rosters.
Another name to throw out there as well, Kyle Menage from the Rut at Rutgers, a 4-year starter there, really a twitchy player. I don't think he ever played between health and playing in a Big Ten that Rutgers is outmatched in for the most part. Has kind of affected the counting stats there, but the raw talent I genuinely believe in as somebody who could be someone who could play a legitimate part a year or two from now in a 4th or 5th or 6th round pick. Another really good player there, but again, just kind of goes to the point. Everyone that we've mentioned, I think these are players who can absolutely help out NFL rosters. And I think because of how deep the position is, I think you could see teams, I think we're going to see the teams get very aggressive at the top of the draft. The ones who want the running backs, they're going to get aggressive on day one. But I imagine there'll be quite a few teams who are going to be trying to find ways. Maybe they need to trade up a little bit, a couple picks to go get their running back in the second day or the third day. But there's a lot of good talent in this class that I'd imagine might actually drive down value to a certain extent as teams say, you know what?
Yeah.
We could find one of these 3 players in the 3rd or 4th round or the 5th and 6th round and feel good about the running back we walked away from this class with.
That's something I've been thinking about while looking at this class, especially because I've been going back and forth with kind of what you just showed both sides of, where, yeah, there are going to be some guys that I've seen, projected really high, and maybe that's because there's some teams' favorites. But it's also a deep class. So does that mean you will wait? So it is going to be interesting to see the teams who need running backs. Are they moving up for the favorites, or are they waiting because of the depth of the class? So I want to highlight that there that you said, because it is a really interesting question in this draft.
All right, Eli, why don't you set us up on the NFL side? What teams are currently in the market for a running back in this class, and just how desperate are they?
There is a decent amount of teams that need either a main bell cow starter for them or have a established starter that they're looking for some high upside running backs to pair with, and some teams that have a lower priority just needing some depth pieces, but certainly can add to the room. Looking at the teams that need a guy: Steelers, the Raiders, Broncos, Cowboys, and Browns. 5 teams that have running back very high in terms of draft need this year. None of those teams have an established mainline starter. At best, you're talking about Jaylen Warren on the Steelers. Cowboys signed Javonte Williams. We'll dive deeper into some of these teams coming up. But those are the squads that they could draft a running back very high, and it would make sense for where their roster is right now. A team like Chicago Bears, LA Chargers, and New England Patriots, these are teams that have guys in the running back room who, if they didn't draft a running back high, could still have a productive running game this year. But adding a top end talent could really boost the efficiency of their offense. The Chargers just brought in Najee. We've seen he's really a rotational piece, what he had in the Steelers. The Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson, is he actually their starter? Is he in the doghouse? We'll see what Mike Vrabel thinks of him. That'll be an interesting pairing. And there are a few teams who really could stand to add some depth to the room. The Washington Commanders have a starter in Brian Robinson Jr. Austin Eckler is old, so adding a piece there makes sense. The Ravens are a sneaky running back needy team. We know they have the King. King is 31 years old. Derrick Henry is getting up there, and it feels like he's never going to slow down, but he will at some point lose a step. And it could be this year. Our running backs at 31, Frank Gore and Emmitt Smith, and that's about it. So they could be a team that could look to add. And a couple more, the Houston Texans, the New Orleans Saints, and the New York Giants. All squads that could add some good depth to that room who have some starters already.
Absolutely. I think all of those teams in the market for a running back. I think obviously there are other teams that could surprise. I don't think there's ever a bad time, especially on any NFL roster, to take swings on day 3 in the running back room. And I'd expect that a lot of the teams that you mentioned might be in the market for it on days 1 and 2, when their level of need simply deserves a top 100 or top 120 pick. Damon, why don't you let's get into a little bit more now. Now that we know the players who are going to be drafted and the teams that are looking to draft them, let's start talking about, kind of play a little GM matchmaker here. Put yourself in the shoes of being the GMs of some of those teams that Eli just mentioned, and exactly how you would go about targeting running backs in this class, if you with both an aggressive mindset and a more conservative mindset. Adam, why don't you start us off? Let's start with the Las Vegas Raiders.
Well, with the Raiders, they have an interesting running back room. They've got some athletes in there. Not totally sure if they've got the running backs in there in terms of just instinctive players of the game. Raheem Mostert's, the speediest guy and probably also the most instinctive. But like we were talking about with Derrick Henry, he's old. And at a certain point, that speed is going to go. If you are fast, you're going to last a little longer than the other guys. They should get young in the room, because Sincere McCormick, he's a young guy, but he's not really, you're not going to rely on him going forward, especially in a Pete Carroll offense that we are assuming is going to rely on the running backs to a certain extent. And Zamir White, he had his chance last year and he just didn't prove it. So we're not going to, go into this year expecting him to prove it this year after he had a full year. So
last in the NFL in rushing yards a year ago, and have really done nothing in the offseason to add to that room, just really puts all of the onus on this draft to replenish that running back room.
And I think a lot of people are going to Ashton Jeanty. He's a great running back. I don't know that Pete Carroll necessarily thinks he has to draft a running back in the first round. Let's think about Chris Carson, Rashad Penny.
Was a first-round pick.
Oh, Rashad Penny was a first-round pick?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, it was a bad first-round pick. Maybe he's learned his lesson. I forgot about it.
Carson was a 7th, and Penny was a first. Yeah, it was wild.
Penny was. I remember I liked Penny coming out too, but first round was too high for him. Marshawn, I think, was a first-round pick, but they traded not a first-round pick to get him from the Bills. And then there was another running. Alex Collins they used for like a stretch of game. Like Pete Carroll will find guys who can run the football. So
2 second-round picks on Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker, if I remember correctly.
Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker. And there's one other random running back. I think Thomas Rawls. Thomas Rawls had a stretch where he was doing a lot of good things for the Seahawks with Pete Carroll. So I really don't think that he needs to draft a running back at number 6. Ashton Jeanty, he would love him. And he is somewhat reminiscent of Marshawn. With Jeanty, I'd go, he's a little more of a Frank Gore than a Marshawn Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
And, Frank Gore is an incredible career. And I think that's a very realistic career for Jeanty, but it's just a different style of runner. And I don't think you need that in the first round. So I would wait for the second round, the Pete Carroll special, wait for the second round. They got the 37th pick. There are going to be good running backs at the 37th pick. Find your favorite outside of Jeanty and, I guess outside of Omari and Hampton too. And you'll be able to find a clear leader in the clubhouse for that running back room. Raheem Mostert, great backup. And let Sincere McCormick and Zamir White fight it out for the third string back.
Eli, if you were to be a little bit more conservative, if Jeanty is not at number 1 and you want to take if you're aiming for pick number 34, who would you conceivably look to target if you're in the second round? And who would you, if you had to wait longer, who would you be looking later in the draft?
So if I am correct, this is a Chip Kelly offense.
Last I checked.
In Las Vegas, and Chip Kelly just won a national title at Ohio State. Is that correct?
Last I checked.
And they had a couple good running backs in that room.
Last I checked.
So TreVeyon Henderson makes all the sense in the world as a second-round pick for this team. Using the top pick in the second round on TreVeyon, what's really unique about the Raiders situation is they have 5+ starters along the offensive line. At least 3+ starters and 2 average starters, which when looking to add a running back to a room is a very good position. And TreVeyon is a back who can take advantage of some big lanes and hit home runs for you in Vegas. Also, it's just a good fit culturally in the city. This is a high-flying gambling city. Give me the back who's got home run potential that they are going to get behind and love cheering for. Running behind Jackson Powers-Johnson and Dylan Parham, DJ Glaze on the right side, Jordan Meredith on the left side is a grader. This is a really good offensive line to create holes. So a guy like TreVeyon, if you wanted to be conservative and not take Ashton in the first round, makes a lot of sense. On the flip side, to play devil's advocate, using the exact same point, this is why it makes a lot of sense to add Ashton in the first round, because they do have the offensive line where an elite back can take advantage of the lanes that are being created. We just saw it happen with the Eagles. You added Saquon to this room and magic happened. And the rest of the offense has got starters. So you got Brock, you got Jacoby Myers. And so you have skilled players to catch passes from Geno. Add a dynamite, essentially Aaron Jones plus 30 pounds. Is like what Ashton Jeanty looks like to me. He is awesome. He's the best.
Mr. Host, are we responding right now?
Respond away.
I would like to respond. So I had a kind of an emotional roller coaster.
He just had his Marco Rubio drinking moment mid-speech, and then now he's so formal with the request. Continue.
I would like to respond, if it pleases the room. I went on an emotional roller coaster with your explanation for Henderson to the Raiders in the second round. So I love the fact that it fits with Chip Kelly, and I love the fact that it fits with a good offensive line opening big holes. But when I watched TreVeyon Henderson, I watched 3 games and got frustrated and stopped because I don't think I saw him. There was one spin move that looked really cool, and he spun around a deep lineman. We're not the most athletic group, but it still looked cool. And besides that, I don't know that I saw him do anything besides run straight really fast. And that is a fantastic element to have on your team. And in my notes, I even put him, I don't think you should think of him as a third down back, like a pass blocking, go out for catches, because I don't think he has kind of the wiggle or the lateral agility for that. He seems more like a gadget player to me, where you're taking him on the sweeps, throwing screens to him, throwing bubbles, whatever it may be, putting him all over the place. So I believe he's a very good weapon for the team, but I don't think that the Raiders in the second round should be targeting that skill set as their primary running back, especially with Raheem Mostert already in the room, providing a lot of that speed out of the backfield already. So I like the fit there, better than I would most teams because of what you said, but
Mhm.
I don't like the role as the primary back.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I mean, he was primary at Ohio State, and they asked him if it would be okay if Judkins came in and they split the backfield. I mean, Chip Kelly was fine with him for a season, him being the primary ball carrier. We all assumed he was going to be a first round running back coming into this year based on the role he had the previous season. And because he split time with Judkins, because Judkins is that good, and we'll talk about him later, his stock and his value fell in the draft. With a player like Trevion, I agree. Putting him as the primary bell cow is not where he's going to be best. You want a home run back like that to only have so many power swings in the game so he can be at full speed. But being able to pick up a guy like Devin Neal in the fifth round, a guy who is consistent, is a leader, is a bell cow, is going to get your 3 to 5 yard gains that you need to progress down the field. You can bring Trevion in to hit the home run for you. A pairing like that for the Raiders using a second and a fifth, I agree, Adam. I think that makes a lot of sense. But being able to take a home run hitter who is also an amazing pass protecting back, that unique combination of skills that Trevion has, I think, is justified in a second round pick for a tailback.
So it feels like we're aiming Ashton Genty at 6. If that is truly the aggressiveness that we want to go with, I think Genty there is as close to a home run hitter as you could possibly get at the running back position that we've seen. Right up there with a Bijan, right up there with a Gibbs, right up there with a Barkley. I think the talent is absolutely there. I think he could revolutionize that Raiders running team that, like I said, was last in the NFL in rushing yards per game last year. And if not, I think between Henderson, Hampton if he fell, if Judkins, if that's Caleb Johnson. There's quite a few players that they could go and look at pick 37 if they wanted to. Eli, like you mentioned, it would not shock me, especially with how bad the position was last year, if they double dipped on the running back in the running back position in this draft with someone on day 1 and 2 and someone late on day 3. Adam, why don't we go up to the next team and let's talk about them boys down in Dallas, adding Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders to a running back room that lost Rico Dowdle does not inspire a lot of confidence in Jerry world. Why don't you talk us how you would go about if you were Jerry Jones, and yeah, that's the shoes I want that you have to wear now. If you were Jerry Jones, how would you go about fixing this running back?
Yeah, so I think this kind of starts with an Omari and Hampton conversation. I personally would not draft Genty above 12 where the Cowboys are picking, but it seems like some others are. And assuming Genty's gone, it goes to Omari and Hampton. Omari and Hampton at 12 is not a good decision to me, especially with all the different moves that the Cowboys need to make. Offensive line, defensive back, defensive line, linebacker. There's so many positions that are going to be available in the first round. And running back is such a deep class that I think people are just thinking, oh, it's the Cowboys. We want stars. Oh, Omari and Hampton is this great athlete. Well, I'm watching his film. He's an incredible athlete, but I don't see the instincts show up. I see attitude show up. He is absolutely a hard worker. And based on watching him, I think that he does what the coaches say. And he's an incredible athlete. But I don't necessarily know that he has the instincts or like the lateral agility to get out of trouble behind the line of scrimmage, behind a bad offensive line. Or, there are a few too many times where I saw him running up to someone in the open field and just kind of going off to the left or right, and the guy tackled him, and he just fell forward. He wasn't breaking those dudes off or anything like a Saquon or a Bijan or anything like that. So I don't think he's a first-round running back. I think he's a starting running back. I think he's someone you can plug in and, okay, we got a guy. But if you are saying we need to revamp this run game, Omari and Hampton isn't the guy to me. So I think the second round is where I don't think first-round running back should even be a consideration for the Cowboys. And then I think second round should absolutely be a consideration because you're still going to get a good player in the second round. And you need a good player because Javonte Williams has not shown himself to be the guy who can take it 20, 25 times a game and just be your guy. So you're going to need a room of guys. Miles Sanders, after last year, we don't necessarily trust him to be that. Deuce Vaughn, he was a rookie. It was last year he was a rookie, right? I don't think we believe
2 years.
believe so.
2 years
2
ago.
years ago,
It
yeah.
has been a bit for Deuce Vaughn, but 2 years he hasn't shown to be a consistent rotational guy. And you need one in there. Second round will have one. First round has a bunch of other good players at other positions that you need. So just forget about it for the first round. Go with Quinshon Judkins in the second round, someone who looks really shifty and might be able to bring a different element than Javonte Williams, who's kind of just like one cut straight line, put your head down, go a lot of the time. So bring a different element to the game, get another guy the ball 15 times a game, 12, 10, whatever it may be, double digits at least. Help the running back room, but don't think that this is the draft where we're going to make ourselves a ground and pound team again, because you just have too many other things you need to take care of.
Okay, so let me throw this situation to you, Adam. It's pick 12. Jerry Jones is sitting there. Ashton Jeanty is on the board. Jerry Jones, is he going to be able to resist taking the star? Ezekiel Elliott, Emmitt Smith, right? This is a proud franchise with a great history of running back talent, taking them high and taking them early. Jerry's going to be able to resist taking Jeanty if he's there at 12?
I don't know that I would necessarily hate
Answer the question.
12.
Answer the question.
I don't know. I don't know, because I
This
don't
is
know
what
who
we
else
would
is.
do, though, right? We're not old and decrepit, right?
What if Mason Graham comes out with a gas mask bong video right when the draft starts, and he starts
I feel like
dropping
for
all
the
the way
record,
to
I feel like
12?
one of these hypotheticals is likely and the other one
You never know
is
what's
far
going to
less.
happen.
But I would say in the scenario, if Jeanty is on the board at 12.
I don't hate Jeanty to the Cowboys. I don't hate that. Jeanty at 12, I think, is fantastic value. And yes, there's so many other needs on the Cowboys. Maybe he just, like, again, I don't think Omarion Hampton is transcendent. I think he's a starter.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
For now, but I don't think he's transcendent. Jeanty, I can't get him into the Saquon Bijan caliber of players just because the physical skills aren't the same. Those guys just are another level physically. But Jeanty can do as much as anyone possibly can who doesn't have those insane physical gifts. So at 12, yeah, I would accept that. I think, did Gibbs go at 12 to the
12,
Lions?
13, right?
I think it's around 12.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I don't hate that value, because I think he can legitimately change your offense, not just maximize what you already have.
Yeah. The Cowboys, when we talk about rosters where adding a running back makes sense, Cowboys are another one where they have the structure. You have CD, you have Dak, right, to support the passing game. Now, they're going to need some other skilled talent to catch balls. But along the offensive line, Cooper Beebe, Brock Huffman, Tyler Smith, Terrence Steele, 4 quality to plus starters. They're going to need a lot from Tyler Guyton this year. You're going to need him to raise his game. He was not good as a rookie.
Yeah,
he was bad, and we knew he was a project coming out. So bringing in a player, and Omarion is really interesting to me. I watch him. It seems like a slower Arian Foster with his contact balance, with the power that he runs with, ability to catch the ball, some of the smoothness that he shows, but he gets caught. He gets caught all the time. He does not erase angles ever. And like you said, Adam, a first round back, you want some sort of Chris Johnson like physical talent, Jahmyr Gibbs, who is going to do something special for you. Jeanty has the kind of full package balance of a first round running back that's justified. First round for Omarion, I don't get the hype at all. I don't get it at all. It's like a mid-second, maybe third round back when I look at him.
If we're talking about Hampton, who again right now is projected to go somewhere in the first or top of the second, if he's not your guy for all the reasons that both of you pretty much just mentioned, who do you have as RB2 in this class?
Adam, you want to kick it?
It's almost Omarion Hampton, because he is such a good athlete and he is bringing the right attitude to running the football. and he has good enough vision that if you put him out there, he's going to produce for you. But again, he's just not going to change the offense. The issue I have with the other running backs, they're a little too dependent on the offense. So Caleb Johnson would, I guess, be my number 2 if I wasn't picking Omarion Hampton. But I think he's a little too dependent, at least currently, on running an outside zone scheme offense. He's a great one cut back, and when he gets some momentum going, he can really get some power. But he just wasn't the angry runner I was kind of hoping out of like a power scheme running back who's just going to come in and take over. He could turn into that, but he's not currently that. So I was a little hesitant to put him as just you can draft him and make him your guy. Like, I think he'd be a good running back eventually and great in a rotation, but yeah, I think I still got to go Omarion Hampton just because of the pure physical ability.
The consensus big board has Hampton at 25 and Trevion at 42, Quinshon at 51. I think that's way too high on Hampton and much too low on Henderson and Judkins. I have them all right in the same tier. If I had the choice between those 3, I would take Trevion Henderson. If you give me the running back who's got the elite breakaway potential, yes, it may be 1 yard, 1 yard, 1 yard, 27 yards, and I'll take that back. That's who I would add to the team.
Yeah, and we touched on Henderson a little bit, but if we have some time, do you want to get into Judkins a little bit? Because I think we're both a little lower than consensus on him.
I'm higher on consensus than him, but we can talk about him with the next teams.
Perfect.
Talk it out. Let's go. I was going to say, let's bring up the next team then. Let's bring up the Steelers here. Just like we mentioned Najee Harris before, he's gone off to join Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers, leaving Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell and the never retiring Cordell Patterson still remaining in the room. Have 2 picks in the first 2 rounds, have 2 picks in the first 3 rounds, number 21 and the 19th pick in the 3rd round. Eli, talk us through the Steelers a little bit and kind of how you would tackle the running back position from their standpoint.
So it's a really interesting team where they are right now. Everything around the quarterback position is pretty much set. Mason Rudolph is their current projected starter on day 1. So obviously they're going to have to do something about that. But really the 2 positions, running back and quarterback, where this team is lacking. And also draft capital wise, they traded their 2nd round pick for DK Metcalf. So they already added a skilled player with their 2nd round pick. And so there's a large gap between the 1st and the 3rd round pick. And when that's the situation, are you going to spend 1st round pick on a position that we know the surplus value is not there at running back? They have the offensive line, though, to support taking a running back in the first time. Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, Troy Fautanu, Broderick Jones, another team that's going to need their left tackle to step up. And they signed Isaac Smolo. I think I butchered the last name, but they signed him from Philadelphia to come in and start at left guard. This is a team where it feels waiting for a good running back day 2 or day 3 makes a lot of sense. We talk about pairing players that fit culture, that fit the city, that fit the roster that they're on. This was probably going to be an Aaron Rodgers team, and I think he'd be very happy handing the ball to Cam Skattebo. I think this is a player that makes a lot of sense for the physical style, the brand of football that they want to play, a leader in the locker room, someone who's going to come in the December game that they're playing against the Ravens to win the division. Cam Skattebo, 25 carries, wear you down, and we can throw our moon balls to the receivers on the outside. Team that wanted to wait. It's a destination I think makes a lot of sense for Trevor Etienne. Another player who complements the kind of shiftiness of Jalen Warren, bringing a larger bruiser back to bring the efficiency to the roster makes a lot of sense. But Cam, you can just imagine him in that yellow and black with those stars on his helmet, just pounding through, and Heinz Field going crazy, rooting for their hero. Peyton, who was the Browns' white running back who was on the Madden?
There's a few of them.
Yeah, right. But feel like Steelers could get behind good old Cam.
Yeah, Skattebo there would certainly make a ton of sense. And I think what would also be interesting is, as we have a system that a team that now has 2 wide receivers on the outside, but we still don't quite know who the quarterback is going to be. Again, we think Aaron Rodgers, but there might be someone that they drafted in this spot. We don't know. The fact that a interesting wrinkle about Scotabo is the fact that he can catch balls. He can run the ball. He can throw the ball. We saw him throw a touchdown pass in the national college, the national semifinal. So he is a all-around player. He's an all-around gamer athlete. And I think that kind of hard-nosed mindset, like I'll do whatever it takes for me to win, is just a perfect fitting there. And from a draft overall perspective, I think the 19th pick in the 3rd round is doable for Scotabo there. And if they wanted to move up, they could tack on a little, either some late round picks or some picks from next year if they genuinely felt like they needed to move up to go grab him. But I think within that range, I think he could potentially fall there.
Yeah, the consensus board has Cam at 72, which is right around where that 3rd round pick is. And so there's the possibility. I've seen he's kind of been a riser as people have dove into the tape more and just said, this is a draft where you just kind of want to take the good players. The top end talent is there, and Cam carried that team to a national semifinal. So I think be a great fit there. This is what we call the Brock Purdy plan of having no good quarterback and just surrounding him with all the best players. And then our quarterback looks good because of it. That's what we call the Brock Purdy.
So I got to ask though, when I look at Cam Scotabo, I see a player that is pretty similar to Jaylen Warren. So I'm not totally sure.
Not a ton of speed.
Yeah, not a huge amount of speed, but like bulky and still good out of the backfield while bulky. So I'm just wondering, like, what is he bringing differently from Jaylen Warren that, you know, they couldn't spend on like a different running back with a different skill set?
Yeah, pretty much what you're getting is Donkey Kong and Cam Scotabo and Waluigi and Jaylen Warren. Like, he's the technician. Huh? He's a little slippery. He's a little shady. It's just a spin move, and all of a sudden, Jaylen Warren's got 4 or 5 yards, and Cam is going to go right through your face. I think that's the biggest difference. Just have a slight different physicality. Both are physical players. Cam is a little more, I'm putting my helmet into your chest 20 times a game. And Jaylen Warren is about a little more on the technician side, but still being physical while he goes about it. Some power spins, stiff arms, that sort of thing. Cam is just putting his helmet into you.
I also think to a certain extent, if I'm remembering the contract correctly, I believe Warren is a free agent at the end of this upcoming season. So if you were to go and draft a Scotabo, you'd have the at least ability to look into the future here. You'd eventually conceivably replace Warren with a home run hitter, a speedster if you wanted to, and now you have your kind of thunder lightning that you're kind of alluding to, David.
And yeah, I mean, Cam, and he's 23, right? That's a factor to consider in any running back that you're taking. By the end of his rookie contract, you're 27, and that's already right at the wall. So 3rd round for a 23-year-old, that's fair price for old Cammy.
Let's briefly, because we talked about him before, I want to bring him up before the show ends. Quinshon Judkins, we were discussing him a little bit before. Let's talk about him maybe in the sense of Denver, who I know who is obviously in the market for a running back. We'll have a 2nd round pick in this upcoming draft, which would be around the spaces where we're currently seeing Judkins potentially go. Talk about Judkins a little bit. It seems like you two disagree a little bit. Eli, you're a little higher on him. Dama, you're not quite so sold. Damon, why don't you kick us off there?
Yeah, so seemed to have good speed and acceleration, seemed to be a bit of a violent runner, you know, had the right attitude. And overall, the word I kept coming back to was springy. And I think the reason I was considering him springy, I realized after a while, he runs very compactly. You know, he's not necessarily a super short guy, but when he's running, you don't see his arms or his legs going too far out from the frame of his body. And so I think when he's keeping it so compact, when he gets hit, that just, you know, that makes it very easy to shoot out a stiff arm or, you know, just give a quick dead leg and, you know, kind of absorb the hits. So that I really liked. But I just, the more I watched him, the more I was waiting to see him hit a real good juke move or just completely face someone up in the open field, run him over, spin around him, again, juke him, you know, stiff arm him to the ground, whatever it may be. And it just never seemed like one-on-one in a closed space. He was in a closed space. He's very shifty. So when he hits the line and there's a linebacker who appears, he can kind of hop around him. But so, another thing I had in my notes was that he doesn't make jump cuts so much. He makes hop cuts, and they're very quick and they can be effective in those close at the line of scrimmage spaces. But then when he gets into the open field against a safety or a corner, that little hop cut isn't going to work as much. He needs that real lateral movement from a juke. And he just didn't seem to do that at any point. And I kept watching him, and it seemed like he also doesn't really, like, his knees don't come up as high. And so that's going to hurt you too when it comes to changing direction. If you don't have that control where, you can just all of a sudden sink and change your direction real quick. When those knees are just low and running along the ground, like, yeah, he gets up to a good speed, but I think his change of direction ability may end at college. Again, he's an aggressive runner. Overall, he's fast, and he's got that compact style to where he's kind of springy. So he'll be able to find you some yards in the NFL, but to draft this guy thinking he's your future, I wouldn't trust it.
Eli, counterpoint.
There's a lot of great stuff. There's a lot that Adam said that I agree with. Specifically, the compact style of his running. He is just really seems his height. It runs with decent pad level. While I was watching Quinshon, remind me a lot of Jamal Williams coming out of BYU. Just this guy who's getting 4, 5, 6, 7 yards every carry, but it never feels like he's breaking off the home run. Doesn't seem like he has the juice. He did his athletic testing, and it came in pretty surprising. His RAS score, his relative athletic score, was 9.88. It's one of the best athletic testers at the running back position ever. 4.48 40-yard split, 11-foot drop, broad jump, 38.5 vertical. And the game that convinced me was the title game of how good he could be. He was excellent in that game, where those 6-7 yard carries were turning into 12, 14, 16 yards. He seemed to be finding himself as the playoffs went on. Having watched Jamal on the Packers, a player who can gain 5, 6, 7 yards every carry is incredibly valuable. And he does have the athletic ability to break off big runs from time to time. A player like that who is so solid and is going to bring consistency to my offense. I love a running back like that. I love the home run hitter like Trevion, and then I love Judkins. If you could pair them up on the same team, that'd be a lot of fun again, because they do complement each other so well. So a player like that
beat Michigan.
This is right. They were only national champions.
You're damn right. You're damn right. Adam, that's the smartest thing you've said this entire episode. But that just about finishes up our show for today. If you enjoyed the show, then make sure you are subscribed to wherever you listen to your podcasts so you don't miss an episode in the future. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, please be sure to rate and review us. 5 stars, first round picks for all of us around here. And while you're at it, be sure to follow Front Office Playbook on X, YouTube, TikTok, and Twitch to be informed of all of our live shows, scouting videos, and more. So stay up to date on everything happening around the NFL and its impact on your team. Be sure to check back in soon for a brand new episode, and be sure to reach out to us on X to let us know what topics we should tackle next. So until the next episode, for Adam, Eli, and myself, stay safe out there, and as always, thanks for listening.